In January 2009, the government of Zimbabwe printed a banknote worth $100 trillion. 100 trillion, 14 zeros, the largest denomination ever legally issued by any government in human history. On the day it was released, it could not buy a loaf of bread. By the time it was printed, most Zimbabweans had already stopped using their own money. Not because of a law, not because of a crash, but because one by one, shopkeeper by shopkeeper, they had decided the currency was no longer real. This is not a story about bad economics. It is a story about how a nation chose, decision by decision, to destroy everything it had built. To understand what collapsed, you have to understand what existed. When Zimbabwe gained independence from Britain in 1980, it was one of the most promising nations on the African continent. It was called the breadbasket of southern Africa. Its farms produced surplus maize, tobacco, wheat, and beef. Its currency traded at rough parity with the US dollar. But it was the education system that made Zimbabwe genuinely extraordinary. At independence, the literacy rate was below 50%. Within 2 decades, the government had driven it to 97%. Zimbabwe had the highest literacy rate in sub-Saharan Africa. It produced doctors, engineers, and lawyers at a rate that made neighboring nations envious. This was a real thing, built by real people, sustained by real institutions. The question this story answers is not how a country falls into poverty. The question is how a country, with that foundation, chose to destroy everything it had built. Most people point to 2007 or 2008 as the beginning of Zimbabwe's hyperinflation. They are looking at the wrong decade. The real moment came on November 14, 1997. Zimbabweans call it Black Friday. On that single afternoon, the Zimbabwean dollar lost 71.5% of its value against the US dollar. The stock market fell 46%. Private companies lost billions before the closing bell. What caused it? Not a currency attack. Not a foreign speculator. A meeting. Robert Mugabe had a problem. Veterans of Zimbabwe's independence war had been growing restless, marching and demonstrating and embarrassing a ruling party, so he offered them a deal. Each veteran would receive an immediate lump sum payment plus a monthly pension. The total came to $4.2 billion, roughly 3% of the country's entire GDP. It had not been budgeted. There was no plan to fund it. It was announced, and then it was simply done. The market understood immediately what the government refused to say. There was no money for this. The money would have to be created. The World Bank withdrew $65 million in support the same week. Mugabe had not lost control. He had chosen to buy political loyalty with money that did not exist. The price would be paid by everyone except the people in that room. 1 year after Black Friday, Zimbabwe made another decision that almost never appears in coverage of the hyperinflation. In September 1998, Mugabe deployed 11,000 troops to the Democratic Republic of Congo to support a government there facing a rebel uprising. The war was not approved by Parliament. It was not publicly debated. It was not budgeted. Members of Zimbabwe's ruling elite had mining interests in the Congo. The intervention protected those interests. The public was told it was regional solidarity. The war cost $1 million every single day. It lasted until 2003. And the government was concealing the extent of the drain, underreporting its war spending to the IMF by $22 million a month. The World Bank and IMF cut off Zimbabwe in 1999. Sanctions followed. By 2000, the country was cut off from the international financial system it had once been a trusted member of. There was only one mechanism left to pay its bills: the printing press. In December 2003, Robert Mugabe appointed Gideon Gono as governor of the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe. Gono was a self-made man. He had risen from a tea boy at a provincial brewery to the governor of a central bank. He had a reputation as a fixer who turned troubled institutions around. Mugabe needed someone who could present the appearance of financial credibility while doing whatever the political situation required. Gono was also, in the end, the man who oversaw the complete destruction of the currency he was appointed to protect. The money supply grew by 104% in his first year, then 411%, then 1,417%. Then 81,000% in 2007 alone. Gono later confessed publicly. He said, "I was given a car with no fuel and expected to reach a destination. You drive on empty." He said he chose to allow inflation to go the way it went in order to preserve the lives of his people. Then he said, "Out of necessity, I had to find myself printing money. I found myself doing extraordinary things that are not in the textbooks." He was not ignorant of what he was doing. He knew, he chose, and he called it patriotism. By 2005, millions of Zimbabweans had adapted to the collapse of the formal economy by building an informal one. Street vendors, cross-border traders, small market sellers. People doing what people always do when institutions fail. They found a way. In May 2005, the government launched Operation Murambatsvina. The name translates as Move the Rubbish. Officially, it was described as an urban cleanup. What it actually did was systematically demolish everything people had built to survive. Police and army units moved through Zimbabwe cities, bulldozing homes, destroying market stalls, arresting vendors. In the first week alone, 20,000 vendors were reported arrested in Harare. According to United Nations estimates, at least 700,000 people lost their homes or livelihoods. In the middle of a currency collapse, the government destroyed the informal economy that was keeping people alive, and then it kept printing. By 2008, prices were doubling every 24 hours. People carried cash in backpacks and wheelbarrows. ATMs could not dispense enough bills for a basic grocery purchase. The Reserve Bank set daily withdrawal limits that, within a week, could not buy a single loaf of bread. Schools accepted payment in cooking oil or sugar. Because those goods held value in a way that paper could not. Doctors required US dollars. Those who could not pay went untreated. Using foreign currency was technically illegal, yet by mid-2008, the majority of urban transactions were already in rand or dollars. The people responsible for enforcing the law had stopped believing in it themselves. Police officers caught illegal currency dealers and demanded bribes in US dollars. When the enforcers have abandoned the rules, the system is not struggling, the system is gone. Then cholera broke out. Zimbabwe had once had one of the best water systems in Africa, but the infrastructure had run out of money to maintain itself. Water treatment plants had no chemicals. Sewer pipes had burst and were not repaired. More than 4,000 people died. People dying of a preventable disease because the currency that should have paid for pipe fittings had been printed into worthlessness. That is what hyperinflation actually is. It is not a graph. It is water you cannot drink.
Between 2000 and 2009, an estimated 3 to 4 million Zimbabweans left the country. A quarter of the nation crossed a border to survive. They were the doctors, engineers, and teachers the country had spent 2 decades educating. And then something happened that no economist had predicted. The people who left kept the country alive. In 2008, at the absolute depth of the collapse, Zimbabweans living abroad sent home $1.6 billion. More than 10% of GDP, more than all export earnings and all development assistance combined. The brain drain that everyone said would destroy Zimbabwe was the only thing preventing its complete collapse. The $100 trillion note now sells on eBay for more than it ever bought when it was legal tender. A currency that could not buy a bus ticket is worth more as a souvenir than it was as money. Gideon Gono was reappointed as governor in November 2008, at the very peak of the crisis. The man operating the printing press was given another 5 years. The names change. The denominations change. The justifications change. The mechanism does not.